Every journey begins with a simple act of care. For Quest to Unite Africa, that journey started with something simple: a mother, a newborn, and a promise that no life would be forgotten. We did not begin with buildings, we began with people. We packed mother newborn kits with our own hands because real change starts where the need is greatest. Those kids traveled farther than we imagined, and they opened our eyes to a deeper truth. Aid saves lives, but infrastructure saves generations. So we grew. Together with donors, volunteers, and partners, we sent a medical container to Burkina Faso. Not just supplies, but hope. Not just boxes, but proof that when a community comes together, healing moves across borders. That moment changed us because we realized something powerful. We weren't just delivering help, we were building a future. Now the journey continues. The next chapter is bigger than a shipment, bigger than a campaign. We are raising funds to build a state-of-the-art hospital, a place where mothers can give birth safely, where families can find care close to home, and where communities can grow stronger for generations to come. This hospital is not just a structure, it's a promise. A promise that healthcare will no longer be temporary. A promise that dignity will have a permanent home. And just like every step before, we cannot do this alone. Every gift, every brick, every name placed on the founder path becomes part of a story that began with compassion and is growing into legacy. It helps us move from emergency aid to lasting healing, from containers to care that never leaves, from vision to reality. Join us, stand with us, help us build a hospital that will serve generations, moving healthcare into action. Visit Q2UA.org today.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Salam and greetings, everyone. Sorry, and when I'm in this studio, things are a little a little wonky. Welcome. Sorry, I was running a little later than I wanted to. Um, but that's okay. As I had promised, I was coming on over here into the Q2UA space this morning. So I pray that all is well. All right. Um, yeah, a little unusual getting into this chat here this morning. Give me a one in the chat if you all can hear me, because it looks like I don't know if this set up properly. I don't think it did. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. Perfect. All right. I see Echo Bella, Rhonda, and Jerry. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, greetings, everyone, as I go through this. Q2UA discussions live on Friday. The plan is that uh, this will, excuse me, this channel will expand, especially as we continue to move forward with different projects, and most high willing, more media content that would be then on the ground in the continent, as most high willing these projects take shape, especially in a very dynamic time. A couple of, I'm going to tell you, less than 2 weeks ago, that's what it was. Less than 2 weeks ago, the world changed, and we're still campaigning for the funds. We're still working that project. We appreciate it. Um, there are some things in the background that I'm doing with the donations and being able to get things funded. So I pray that you pray for me and pray for the favor so that the Most High allows me to do things in a very favorable manner. I work with people, right? And at the end of the day, we just can't say, well, you know what? The Most High says we're going to get this done, so give us the money. That no. You actually have to work in humility, because if we did operate that way, I'm going to tell you, the doors to even have gotten to this point would have been closed on this organization a while ago. And the reality is that as everything is moving within the world, the diaspora has really been put in a very unique opportunity. And that opportunity is where we have actually turned into a head overnight and are getting out of the position of being a tail. And let me explain that as we are going through a little bit of the breakdown that's happening over in the continent. Um, excuse me. So over the course of the last now almost 3 years, it'll be 3 years in April. The Most High has had us in this organization, Q2UA, go throughout the continent of Africa, starting on the east and working our way back towards the west. Now, it wasn't always fun, it wasn't always pretty, but the Most High put us in the position that He put us so we could establish these relationships. And, excuse me. And obviously, before this conflict, this war, it's a war that kicked off. Before that happened, we were in in the midst of the kickoff for the hospital project that we started in earnest early February. And there was, it wasn't really an intrepidation or a concern, but before that happened, there had been other things that I was working on in the background with an investor that was going to be really the single source investment. And that did not pan out the way that it needed to pan out. And I understand why, because let me tell you this. This conflict has exposed a lot of things, right? Number one, conflicts expose not just people, but exposes governments. It exposes functional apparatus that works, or apparati that works, and how you do and how you perform day to day. And one of the things that I don't know if people have really understood this, which is the most grave and concerning regarding this war, is that fertilizer, yes, fertilizer that is consumed, that is used by the U.S. for growing our agricultural products, a lot of that, I think they said, it was very staggering. Like 70% of U.S. fertilizer, U.S. produced fertilizer, I kid you not, has it, that has been the increase, and they're looking a that, excuse me, that was the inflationary rate. It had gone up 70%. That's the cost of the fertilizer. The cost of the corn futures have only gone up 5%, because there's always these tactics in the background by the USDA, by all of these other things that support driving down cost. And those costs are going to be felt by the farmers. So, they had that little bailout, or they thought that they had a little bit of a bailout, right? Remember the black farmers that had, sued and had won, and then they had that lawsuit overturned. So yes, Pastor Rick Fletcher and Sister Barbara, yeah, they are toxic. Yes, they are toxic, but the nitrogen is a it is a byproduct. It is a byproduct, and yes, you can definitely do holistic fertilizers, more of your manure based and other biodegradable components. However, in mass here in the United States, for a lot of these major farms, they do use the fertilizer that comes from Asia. So that increase has already been felt, and again, all of the natural fertilizers are always more expensive because, of course, they're healthier. So now we're seeing potentially on the horizon, we're now seeing famine conditions. I'm not saying that a famine is going to occur, but you always are looking at famine conditions, because these are some of the primary, secondary, and tertiary effects when it comes to war. Now when certain people say that war is fun, it may be fun for a little bit. However, the loss of lives is a real condition and a real concern, because when the lower end of this demographic spectrum, which by and large all around the world are the African diaspora, well, we are then marginalized as a people. That's what happens. Sorry, it always historically happens. So we have to go through and pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. However, historically, we've had farms, but as these decades have gone by, there has been a major push to recoup any type of farm lands that we may have had in the African diaspora community. And those are communities worldwide. It's not just here in the United States, but it's also been in the Caribbean. It's also been in South America, and generally speaking, in those countries, the trend has now been that land has been sold off to other groups of people, or if not sold off, then they're requisitioned back via other government mechanisms. So, what does that mean in layman's terms? In layman's terms, we are not really able to produce and not necessarily produce, but we can't control our own food subsidies, our own um, foodstuffs. So now the impact is going to really be, how do we establish a trade conduit to bring over the necessary fruits and vegetables, foodstuffs, fried fruit, frozen food, flash freeze, you name it. And, in the background, I've had this conversation for the last couple of years. I always look at that. Look, in the military, we call it logistics. And then in the logistics, you always have to make sure that you're bringing boxes of MREs. You got to make sure that they have Humvees that have the potable water. You have to have water operations. So you go to the river, that river then filters. You put the filter on in there. Anything that you need to have to make sure that the water is drinkable. Because if you don't have drinkable water, if you don't have any food, then you don't have a force. Now, is that the reality of what they're trying to do to us? I don't know. It could be. That remains to be seen. However, I don't want to, have any type of um, debates over things that we're seeing literally starting to collapse in full time. If you understand a problem is getting ready to occur, then you need to make sure that you're doing things to be able to help support people that are going to be affected. If you see a problem and don't do anything about it, that's foolishness. The wise see and they prepare, while the fools pay attention, they see, but they go along with their lives. That's not going to bode so well in the not too distant future. So now, as a people, we're at a decision point. This is a major inflection point of how do we start to flow together to be able to support one another with our relationships over in the continent. How do we work with our brothers and sisters over in the continent to ship produce from out of their ports and to bring them into our ports and to be able to bring them into warehouses and then to be able to support operations here that can help to feed our people? Because now we're looking at a system that at the end of the day, it's not just money. This all now has to do with literally resources. Because we're now seeing a system that they're trying to figure out, how do they navigate this. Now, they're not going to tell you this. They're not going to tell us, no one. They're not going to tell you who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser. However, we do have common sense, and we have something that they try to conveniently hide, but they can't get away from. It's called history. And as a people, we've been generally pretty decent about understanding how to fend for ourselves, but that's always been through the recesses of personal connections, interpersonal connections, relationships, and being able to provide for those relationships. Mainly speaking, how do we incorporate potentially this new barter system that's going on with limited resources? Now, at the end of the day, I'm just going to tell you this. When you have a limitation on resources, generally speaking, you start to see a wave of people leaving that area because the natural occurrence is, even though you may be bringing in resources, the more resources you bring in, the more you're going to be highlighted by the government, and the more that the government will take away from that resource, and therefore that resource will stop producing or sending over that resource, and therefore the people starve. You have famine conditions. That's what's happened all throughout the continent. So if we don't truly understand this, and if we don't truly actually get our acts together, and I thank you for those that are here, but this message isn't for you all generally, by and large, but this is a message that I pray that you are able to bring to your family, bring to your friends, because this government is not going to save you. These agencies are not going to save you. There's now some real hard choices that's going to be made, because you may have a band-aid, but you already know what the solution is going to be at the end of the day. You can have nostalgia, you can love and everything else. You can have, well, this and that, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, mothers, father. I get it, but you have to understand. I'm just telling you from personal experience, seeing this. When the deal goes down and you're not able to truly eat, your stomach will tell you you need to survive. Especially if you have, your children are grown, your parents, it's one of those things. It's a survival mechanism. Hey, if I can get something, I'll try to give it to you. If not, now I know generally speaking, our people, we usually end up perishing because we self-sacrifice at a very, very infinite degree. And history has shown that all throughout, even here in the United States. During Reconstruction, during the Civil War. A lot of the history books have proven, even when we were on the continent, even when we were shut up in those dungeons, the food I gather is going to be for my child to survive. I may not survive this, but as long as they do, we are the witnesses of that testimony coming from the continent. Don't get it twisted with all that crazy indigenous talk. We'll see how crazy that indigenous talk is when they're not able to feed their faces. Oh yeah, a whole bunch of talk changes when the comforts are taken away. Oh, they got food over there? Okay. How do I get there? But I wanted to give you that reality because right now Africa is undergoing a systematic production renaissance, especially in countries like Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, especially in countries like Ghana, where they are now controlling their food production. Imagine that. Imagine being able to control your food production so much so that you are now able to export due to the amount of food that you produce. You just don't have more than enough food for your people, but you have more than enough food to produce for other countries. And I know that this sounds wild and fantastic, but this is actually the case, and this is actually on the horizon. I'm not going to go too much into it on this channel, but it does look like, according to certain reports, that there happens to be targeted operations against U.S. oil and energy production. Interesting. Now, as I had stated this, you're now going to be in a time to where you and I and everybody sitting here in the United States, if you happen to not be sitting in the United States, please pray for us. We're now under a time of threat, even though we're not a direct target. We're under the indirect. And the pressure was always going to be placed on resources. Can you imagine that they use the same tactics against the US that they have used against other nations, right? Controlling resources, burning fields, burning ports. So just imagine what this summer is really going to look like. And these are the things that we have to consider. It's not just going to be, oh, well, one day we're here and one day we're gone. No, it's going to take a little bit of a process. And this is something that we are all having to look to resolve through. Most High willing, He gives us the tools needed. And those tools are resources. But as I had stated earlier, the shoe is now on the other foot because you literally have BlackRock. BlackRock has shut down, for the most part, all of its operations. Really, we haven't seen it yet. Why are they announcing that right now? Why are they announcing that today? Why are they announcing that here in March? Because March is your pivotal first quarter. This is what they're announcing here now because in about another 2.5 weeks, it's 2.5 weeks, they're going to then release their numbers to the many departments, Department of Commerce, Department, which is going to be Labor and Statistics, the SEC, Security Exchange Commissions, and all of the other, well, Treasury, obviously, and all the other regulatory financial agencies and organizations that are going to then see the economic downturn and are going to look at the data, because when you don't have any outflows, which is what BlackRock was saying, no more outflows. Why? Because you now have inflows that are no longer viable. So, what are they trying to do? They're trying to prolong the damage. This is the definition of a managed or scheduled bankruptcy. The amount of inflows or the amount of outflows exceeds the inflows. Now, understand how that economic model historically affects Africa and the African diaspora. Guess what? No dollars are going anywhere. No dollars are going out anywhere. And the circulation is going to be lessened or diminished. So, what does that do? Well, that's a debt. The debt instrument is going to be impacted. But do you know who has the actual wealth and assets? The continent. So I'm actually hopeful with what the continent will be able to produce as this situation unfolds, because now what that is doing for the rest of the world, it's weaning them off of the US dollar. And it's bringing them back to mineral resources as economic assets. Do you see how the script is getting flipped overnight? See, when you're sending on out food and everything else, because America still has to fulfill its food contracts. What do you think is going to be who's going to be fed first? It's going to be all the other nations being fed first. And we've talked about this. I talked about this on this platform and on my channel. We've talked about this. And we've had real serious conversations, but now the conversation has to be even more drastic, unfortunately, because we're seeing this reality unfold in front of our very eyes. As the executive director for Q2UA, my job is to talk to different organizations. I talk to many folks in different positions to help with the amount of exchange of communication of how we are able to support one another. It is not lost on the African continent that we need help. It's not lost. We're just now really in a blackout period, and that's simply because everybody's trying to figure out what the reality is. If you don't even have the real reality in the Middle East from reporting, do you think that these other nations are going to get that information or understanding? I would say yes, but not as robustly. Information has truly been targeted for not just omission, but blatant, I'm going to say this, blatant misinformation or disinformation. So now it's a process of Who can you trust in the information that you trust and the source of that information that you trust? I'm not going to promote Q2UA as a media channel that, hey, we're the source of information of the African diaspora and the African continent. You tune here and we'll give you this. Could we do that? Maybe in the future. Is that something that we could do? Absolutely. It would just be, it would be very, very robust. And again, it's all resources. Everything is resources. It's not to say that we can't do it. It's just to say that what we do, the quality may not be there. And for our people, we want quality. And if you don't have quality, you don't support. And that's not an indictment. That's just the nature of things. But again, as we continue to move forward in this time, we have to really consider really everything that is being said, and even think about and consider what's not being said. Now, here at Q2UA, before I go, we ask that you pray for this hospital project initiative. As I had stated this, the real wealth is on the continent. It has always been on the continent. But let me tell you who really has the wealth. Because sometimes we don't look at ourselves as wealth. We don't. But we are truly a wealth. Our people are. So at the end of the day, win, lose, draw, however you want to think of it, explain it, we have been positioned in this remarkable driver's seat. We are the human capital. We are the human resource. So all I can do here is make the appeal for our people and those that want to support our people, both here in the US and on the continent, to be able to make that change that we have been working to make for the last couple of years, because now the time is here. It's just now the choice is up to you. So with that said, family, again, thank you for your support of Q2A. We can't do this without your support. That's real resources. You can give at Q2A.org. Most High willing, I'll be back on this platform next week. And with that, you can catch me on Covenant Awakenings, and really depending on what goes on, you can catch me this weekend, and that's again depending on how things are, uh, how things go. And it's and I would not be surprised that you'll be catching me on this weekend. So with that said, family, be blessed and take the name of Yahusha with you wherever you go. So that's it for me at Q2UA. And for all of us at Q2UA, you have a blessed and highly favored rest of your day. Salama, family. Take care.